Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods. Hello everyone, this is your host Legend, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my series Champions. Normally, Champions is a 3-minute short form video about a character in Warhammer 40k Tacticus, but this installment of Champions is a bit different. I will instead be remixing a set of Champions episodes into a much more in-depth and long-form version. Champions will see us looking at the glorious side of each character, with focus on their cons kept to a minimum. Today we are looking at 3 champions. Maladus Phlegmore, Blight Lord Champion of the Death Guard, Varro Tigurius, Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines, and Exitor-Rho, Sicarian Ruststalker Princeps of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Maladus Phlegmore is one of the earliest unlocks in Tacticus, and is acquired through one of the guaranteed requisition drops. He is a melee character, and has no way of engaging in ranged combat. If we gave him a generalized role, he would be a tank. If we try to fit Maladus onto one of the Guild Raid meta teams, he would fit best with the multi-hit Guild Raid team. At Diamond 3, Legendary Rarity, 1 blue star, Maladus has the following stats: 11,507 health, 2,493 damage, and 2,589 armor. He has a movement speed of 2, and does 3 hits of power damage in melee combat. He can equip a crit item, and block booster. Maladus' active ability is a melee attack called Flail Swing. At level 50, Flail Swing does 3 hits of 4,487 to 5,085 points of power damage to a target enemy. If the enemy is killed by Flail Swing, they are always overkilled, and Flail Swing can trigger his passive ability. Maladus' passive ability is called Haze of Corruption. Haze of Corruption triggers anytime when he defeats an enemy target. Any remaining damage, plus an additional hit of 698 points of power damage, is applied to another enemy target adjacent to him and the initial target. If this target dies this way, and there was a third target adjacent to the initial target and Maladus, any leftover damage is applied to them. His active ability is often best used on tankier targets, or targets that have traits that trigger if they are not overkilled, such as Final Vengeance. His active is also great to use if you have 3 targets that may not all be killed by his normal attack. When choosing enemies to target, always keep in mind that he can kill 3 in 1 turn, thanks to his passive ability. If a position allows Haze of Corruption to hit up to 3 enemies, cannot be occupied by a better character, and doesn't come with any major faults, always prioritize moving Maladus to that hex and targeting the enemy that allows Haze of Corruption to potentially hit all 3 enemies. Maladus has the Death Guard faction trait of Contagions of Nurgle. As rounds pass by, Contagions of Nurgle's area of effect increases in size up to a max of range 3 by round 5 and beyond. If an enemy unit is in the aura range of Contagions of Nurgle from one of your Death Guard units, that enemy receives a minus 20% armor debuff. If they stand in range of 2 overlapping auras, the unit is affected by a negative 40% armor debuff. Maladus has the general traits of Resilient and Terminator armor. Resilient allows units with the trait to survive lethal damage if not overkilled. The unit's health is instead set to 1 HP. Terminator armor allows units with the trait to take 75% less incoming damage once per turn from any damage type minus direct or psychic damage. If the damage was direct or psychic, the Terminator armor buff is not used. Terminator armor also prevents the unit from being suppressed by any means. Where does Maladus shine? He has always shined best in Horde-style game modes, such as Onslaught, Legendary Release events, and Survival. Thanks to his massive health pool and traits, he can soak up a massive amount of damage for his teammates, even including Revos' dreaded Early Warning Override. His ability to take out 3 enemies in 1 turn is never to be underestimated, and proves most useful against Imperial and Xenos auxiliary units, with the Battle Fatigue trait, meaning in theory, in 1 turn he can remove up to 12 units from the fight. So, who does Maladus pair well with? Well, let's start by looking at his faction, the Death Guard. The biggest synergy the Death Guard share is their trait Contagions of Nurgle. Every unit in the Death Guard has it, minus their Machine of War, and helps to ensure enemy targets are easier to kill overall, and allows said Death Guard Machine of War, the Plague Burst Crawler, to deal damage with its abilities. Of all 4 of the player-controlled non-machine of war units, Maladus has always been best buddies with Nauseous Rotbone and Corrodus. Nauseous Rotbone always has proved to be a most potent healer. His active ability, Revitalizing Malignity, never fails to provide a most powerful shot of healing to all adjacent non-Imperial friendly units, and his passive ability often proves to be a saving grace if for some reason Maladus falls in battle. Corrodus' passive ability solves the biggest issue facing Maladus, that being his movement speed. Cursed Plague Bell gives any Chaos unit in Corrodus' Contagion Aura +1 to their movement speed, which can very well make the difference between making it to an enemy or not. For non-Death Guard units, he pairs well with Boss Golgorts, Ragnar, and Unshi. Boss Golgorts can help to relieve Maladus' slow movement speed via his active ability Wah, which gives any unit adjacent to Golgorts +1 to their movement and allows them to deal more damage per hit and gives an additional hit in melee combat, which not only can help Maladus to get into combat range, but also kill far more units than he would have otherwise. Ragnar is here because of War Howl, which gives a whole host of buffs that any melee unit can benefit from. The temporary unstoppable trait can allow Maladus' movement to go unabated, and War Howl also gives massive buffs to his normal attacks via increased crit percent and increased damage, making once non-confirmable kills easy pickings. Finally, I have Unshi here because his passive ability, Serene Unifier. It allows Maladus to either absorb more damage, deal more damage, or most importantly, can give him +1 to his movement speed. You can acquire Maladus' Shards from Boss Defeat Guild Raid Chest, as long as the boss was in Common to Epic Rarity, Requisition Drops, and Battle Pass mission rewards. If you want to try a really fun pairing, I suggest matching Maladus up with Corrodus, Ragnar, Boss Golgorts, and Unshi. On turn 1, ensure Maladus is adjacent to all 4 characters, then wait for your next turn. On turn 2, you pop Boss Golgorts' Wah, use Unshi to use Ragnar's War Howl twice, and unleash one of the most terrifying things in all of Tacticus, a Movement 5 Unstoppable Maladus, with enough steroids in his system to make an Olympian blush. Varro Tigurius is the very first character we unlock in our Tacticus journey. He is a ranged unit with the typical weak melee attack most ranged units get, and if we give him a generalized role, I would say he is a support unit. If we try to fit him onto one of the Guild Raid meta teams, he would fit best with the Neuro Guild Raid team. At Gold 1, Epic Rarity, 3 red stars, Tigurius has the following stats: 1,735 health, 801 damage, and 374 armor. His health and armor can be boosted by defense items. He has a movement stat of 3, and he has 2 attacks. His normal ranged attack has a range of 2, does 1 hit of psychic damage, and can chain into another target thanks to the Psyker trait. His normal melee attack deals 1 hit of physical damage. Tigurius' active ability is a ranged attack called Storm of Wrath. At level 35, Storm of Wrath allows him to target an enemy within range 2 and deal 1 hit of 714 to 856 points of psychic damage, and can chain across 4 other adjacent targets, still doing the same amount of hits and damage. This chain effect can happen on enemies outside of range 2, as long as they are connected to the initial target. Storm of Wrath cannot be modified by bonuses or modifiers, nor can it crit. Tigurius' passive ability is a support passive called Psychic Fortress. At level 35, Psychic Fortress gives any surrounding friendly units, regardless of terrain, an added block that has a 50% chance of triggering, blocking 171 points of damage. Any unit affected by Psychic Fortress also takes 342 less points of damage from psychic damage. His active ability finds good use against units that are bunched up together thanks to it spreading across multiple targets, and Storm of Wrath is typically used best against spawned/summoned non-2-man team or swarm type auxiliary units, since they typically have less health than their player-controlled counterparts, but can still prove just as annoying in the right circumstances. When Tigurius' passive ability hits, it really hits, and despite Psychic Fortress's main downfall of its RNG nature for its main effect, As long as we remember not to be overly reliant on that good luck and still use good positioning, this passive really is a good addition to any battle. The only trait Tigurius has is the Psyker trait, which allows his normal ranged attacks to chain across another enemy adjacent to his target, dealing 50% of the damage dealt to the main target. This chain can hit enemies further than range 2. Tigurius is difficult to place where he shines past the early to mid game. Let's make something very clear. He isn't a terrible unit, but since he is one of the first units made for Tacticus, he has been power crept over the years. Varro Tigurius, the Ultramarines, and the Necrons are meant to be your beginner-friendly units, and the way their kits work really shows this. They are all simple and easy to understand and very straightforward. Tigurius' ability to chain attacks makes him useful in salvage runs, but the best spot to look at him is legendary release event tracks that allow Psykers and Imperials. Psykers tend to be squishy units and all benefit from his passive ability, which can make the difference between losing a unit or them surviving another round. We still try to rely mainly on the Psykers that can summon units into battle, but not all tracks allow summoning Psykers. So who does he pair well with? Let's first take a look at his faction, the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines don't have an overarching synergy and are to each their own unit. Make no mistake, they do tend to work well together and can complement each other well if played correctly. Each Ultramarine fits a unique role on the battlefield, making them an all-around jack of all trades, which plays well into the lore of the Ultramarines. As we stated earlier, Tigurius can be wedged into the Neuro Guild Raid team. He works best with the main unit of the team, the Neurothrope, since he can help to add stacks of Neuroparasite to affected enemies, allowing Neurothrope's damage to scale rapidly. He can also mix well with the Thousand Suns Infernal Master Archazar Abraxas. Abraxas has a powerful summoning ability that, upon use, summons a pink horror in an adjacent empty hex that immediately attacks. Each time psychic damage is done to an enemy unit, he summons an additional Screamer or Siege in an adjacent empty hex. If Abraxas' summoning frenzy gets stopped for some reason, Tigurius has the perfect skill set to make it start up all over again. Tigurius' Shards can be acquired through both the Indominus and Indominus Mirror campaigns, requisition drops, arena crates, and completed mission rewards. I also want to try and leave you with a fun team composition with Tigurius. We take into battle alongside him Abraxas, Yazgor, Archmados, and Abaddon. Most of this team is very squishy, which is why we have Abaddon. With his Terminator armor and new and improved stats from his rework, he can help to endure hits our squishy units cannot take, and alongside this, his passive buffs all chaos units within range 2. With Abaddon enduring this damage, Abraxas and Archmados can move in safely to start a summoning swarm of demons into the fight. Yazgor helps to move Abraxas once his active has been popped and fully used to allow even more summons into the fight. When Tigurius uses his active or normal attack, and if played well, you have 4 out of your 5 main units buffed, plus their summons thanks to demons being chaos units, which again, if all has gone well, you have just summoned 18 demons in one turn, successfully unleashing hell upon your enemies. Finally, we have Exitor-Rho, the Sicarian Ruststalker who is typically unlocked in the middle game of Tacticus. He is a melee character and has no way of engaging in ranged combat. If given a generalized role, he would be best classed as a DPS. We don't have to try to fit Exitor-Rho into a Guild Raid team, for he is the main character of the AdMech Guild Raid team. At Diamond 3, Legendary Rarity, 5 red stars, Exitor-Rho's stats are as follows: 7,302 health, 2,738 damage, and 1,552 armor. His health and armor can be boosted by a defense item. He has a movement speed of 4, and by default does 2 hits of energy damage in melee combat. You can equip a crit item, defense item, and a crit booster. Exitor-Rho's active ability is a melee attack called Chordclaw. At level 41, Chordclaw deals 4 hits of 529 to 662 points of direct damage to an enemy target. Chordclaw has the secondary effect of making any and all further attacks made by Exitor-Rho deal 2 additional hits of 353 to 529 points of direct damage. This secondary effect lasts until the end of his next turn. Exitor-Rho's passive ability is a melee attack called Optimised Gait. At level 50, Optimised Gait triggers anytime an adjacent enemy is attacked by any friendly mechanical unit. He then deals 2 hits of 2,093 to 2,992 energy damage to that enemy. If the enemy unit is defeated this way or by any mechanical unit, he moves onto that defeated enemy's hex. For Exitor-Rho's ability usage, we will be looking at it through the lens of guild raids. His active ability is best saved for when we have achieved a critical mass of summons, or for the last 2 rounds of a raid. By doing this, we ensure that we maximize the amount of damage dealt by Chordclaw. For his passive ability, to get the most effect, we must ensure 2 things. Primarily, Exitor-Rho is stationed right next to our target. This does include at the beginning of our turn, which may see us on our previous turn needing to predict where the boss will move. And secondly, but still important, we ensure he is always placed on a hex that will give him high ground advantage. High ground gives an additional 50% boost to damage, and doing both of these will maximize the amount of damage dealt to our desired target. Exitor-Rho has the general traits of Mechanical, Camouflage, Infiltrate, and Unstoppable. Of these traits, the most impactful ones are Infiltrate and Unstoppable. Infiltrate allows him to get close to any target without having to worry about pesky Overwatch units damaging or even eliminating him, and Unstoppable allows his amazing movement stat of 4 go unabated, making him one of the most nimble and high mobility characters in the game, second only to characters with the flying trait. Basically, since his introduction to the game, Exitor-Rho has dominated the guild raid meta. This is in large part due to his ability to do a massive amount of out-of-turn damage unlike anyone else in all of Tacticus. It is no joke to say he is a menace on the battlefield, able to turn 300k damaged raids into millions if played well. He is not perfect against every boss, but truly shines against at least 50% of all the guild raid bosses currently in Tacticus. His only weakness is his comparatively small health pool, which in the right circumstances can see his quick elimination from the battle. Although if you're mindful about your positioning and monitor his health carefully, even this weakness is inconsiderable. When pairing Exitor-Rho with other units, his faction gives many strong choices. The 2 most potent are Tangita, the Skitarii Marshal, and Actus, a Tech Priest and Manipulus. When Tangita is in Protector Imperative, he boosts the armor value of adjacent friendly mechanical units, and considerably at that, which in many cases can help them absorb normally lethal damage. When he attacks in this mode, he summons Skitarii Vanguards, which thanks to them having the mechanical trait, can trigger Exitor-Rho's passive ability. When Tangita attacks with his Conqueror Imperative active, any mechanical summon adjacent to him will also attack with him, with each of these attacks also triggering Optimised Gait. Actus not only is a potent mechanic, keeping all units working well for the Omnissiah, but pairs well with Tangita and other mechanical units thanks to his active ability Defend the Divine Work, which repairs all adjacent friendly units, and his passive ability Galvanic Field, which allows him to repair any mechanical unit even if they are at full health. When a unit is repaired by Actus, they also will make another attack if a target is in range. You may already see where this is going. This is the core to the AdMech Guild Raid team. Tangita positions himself into a desirable hex, summons a bunch of Skitarii, you use your other units to also summon mechanical units, and suddenly you have reached a critical mass of mechanical units on the battlefield. With Exitor-Rho next to whoever we want deleted from the battlefield, we begin our assault. Chordclaw will be activated, Tangita triggers Conqueror Imperative and attacks the target. With good placement, we potentially trigger 4 other summons to attack along with him. Actus uses Defend the Divine Work to repair Tangita and all surrounding mechanical units, unleashing yet another storm of blows from Optimised Gait, Tangita and his surrounding summons, and any other unit that was healed by Actus. This mass attack and the power it holds is why the AdMech team has been at the top of the Tacticus Guild Raid meta for so long. Realistically, no other team can dish out this amount of damage so rapidly and with this level of devastation. You add on top of this your flex bot choices, such as Vitruvius, whose passive ability Master Annihilator, which gives any attack minus psychic attacks made on any enemy with the Master Annihilator debuff, take an additional hit up to a maximum amount of damage. And with all this, you will watch any health bar just simply disappear. Unfortunately, Sygex just doesn't even get considered here. It's not to say he can't be helpful, but there are just far better options than Sygex. Exitor-Rho also pairs well with Boss Golgorts, Aleph Null, and High Marshal Helbrecht. Golgorts has a decent passive ability, which allows him to attack twice in one turn, with each attack triggering Optimised Gait. Aleph Null is a powerful mechanic with a passive that allows them to easily heal adjacent units, and an active ability that summons 2 Scarab Swarms that can also trigger Optimised Gait even more. High Marshal Helbrecht doesn't make sense at first. He isn't a mechanical unit, but his passive ability is why he is here. Destroy the Witch will allow adjacent friendly units to do more damage to enemies that have the Psyker trait as long as they are adjacent to High Marshal Helbrecht. This buff proves more powerful against psychic bosses than Master Annihilator or any other damage buff offered by other units. We do have to give some honorable mentions to Trajan, thanks to his passive legendary commander, which can prove most useful against certain bosses. And finally show Syl, who, although they have fallen away from the meta, still have a very powerful mechanical summon. Exitor-Rho Shards can be found through requisition drops, the Death Guard vs Mechanicus campaign event, arena crates, and completed mission rewards. Finally, let's give a very brief summary of each character. Maladus is an absolute unit on the battlefield, especially in horde game modes, and will have no problem living up to the name of the grandfather. Varro Tigurius is an amazing early game character, and we would do good to not forget this. He may be comparatively weak to other units once we reach the mid to late game, but without him, we literally couldn't have started our Tacticus journey. Finally, Exitor-Rho is one of the best units in the game, and has been a staple to the guild raid meta for a long time now, and most importantly, has yet to fail in the great work of the Omnissiah.